thank you so much for joining today's webinar. Today we're going to be covering keeping your routine while self-isolating and tips for working from home during this COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Mel. I'm the Process and Audit Manager here at Care First, but I just wanted to run through some of these points with you today. If you have any questions at all throughout the session, please do keep them in mind, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So if you could keep any questions at all to the end, we can answer those together. Okay, so first of all, we just wanted to really point out that with changes to our usual routines and our everyday life being affected by the developing situation with COVID-19, many of us may be facing new ways of working. You know, we might be juggling work without childcare, so trying to work with little ones running around, or maybe we're adapting to new working environments completely. And it's really important that whilst we're making these changes, we do take careful consideration of our well-being. So this session will just cover some top tips on how to help you work from home, as well as keeping your routine as normal as possible during these unprecedented circumstances. So the session is going to cover working environments, our usual routines, as we've said, working hours and trying to stick to those set hours, making sure we're taking regular breaks, and the importance of keeping in contact with those around us. So first of all, we're just going to look at getting the right working environment for you. So we are, it's really important that where possible, you try and set up your working space somewhere where you are least likely to be disturbed or distracted easily. So, you know, try and avoid it being a place where, you know, you might have the dog running around, or you might have a television or radio on in the background. You know, it's really important that we make sure that we're not going to be disturbed or distracted too easily. Also making sure it's a familiar space. So have familiar things around you in your workplace that you might normally have at work. So if you work on a desk, it might be that you have a particular picture or a particular calendar on your desk, or it might be that you work using particular equipment or stationery. It might sound like a really small thing to add to your working space, but it's really important, because having those familiar items around us can really affect our mindset in terms of making us think that we are in work time, and having those things that we associate with work around us can make it feel really familiar and add a bit of structure as well. And also it's about our workspaces and making sure we're separating those workspaces to where we'll be spending our time in the evenings as well. So it's really important that we're adding sort of transition and structure to our day as well. So making sure that our workspace that we're setting up from home isn't somewhere that we're going to be spending our time in the evening. So whilst it can be really tempting to think, you know, I can work wherever I want to in the home, you know, you might choose to get comfy on the sofa and have your favourite programme on in the background. All that's doing actually is it's not adding structure to your day, and it's going to feel like you have no in-between time, and it would be very easy then for your work time to encroach on your personal time as well. So yeah, avoid working in your living room if it's where you're likely to spend kind of your non-working time as well. So also trying to stick to a usual routine where possible, particularly in the mornings and evenings. So to try and keep an element of normality to your usual routine, it can be really helpful to stick to your normal usual morning routine, as you would do as if you were leaving the house for work. Now clothes, I know it might sound like a really small thing, but it does make a big difference, because if you're getting yourself dressed and ready for the day as you would do normally and prepared for the day, it can really get you in the right kind of mindset for the day ahead, and it can also add definition to the non-working times of your day as well. So, you know, for instance, get yourself dressed for the day and be presentable, particularly if you're going to be on, you know, video links and video calls and things as well, and just getting yourself mentally prepared for the day can be really helpful. And then when your day ends, your working day finishes, make sure that you are leaving the area that you have been working in, and go and get yourself changed into something really comfortable. You know, that might be your PJs, it might just be some loungewear, and just getting yourself comfortable, and it's telling your mind to say, this is my time now, this is my time to relax, and I'm out of that kind of work presentable mode. It can be really, really tempting, because we're working from home, to just be slouchy and just be able to get comfortable in our clothes, but actually having that to add a bit of definition to our day can be really, really helpful. The other thing that's important as well is to make sure that we're having our meal times at the usual day. So try and make sure that you're having, you know, your breakfast at the normal time, your lunch and dinner at the normal time as well, because one, it will really set our metabolism up for the day, and it will also keep us engaged, and it will keep our bodies in our normal kind of functioning routine as well, if we're having that element of normality that we might have lost in other areas. And the other thing again is to really stick to your usual working hours. You know, it can be really, really tempting, because we have the ability to work from home, to be able to just pick and drop things as and when, and just think, okay, I'm going to have my dinner now, but I'm then going to pick up that project that I was working on again and just do a bit more work on it before tomorrow. Just because we have it there and just because we can, try not to be tempted to be picking up work outside of our normal working hours, because it can really blur the lines between our usual work-life balance. And as I said earlier, that there would just be no transition time and there'd be no in between within those elements of our day. And by picking things up around the clock, it does just leave us with very little downtime for ourselves. It leaves us with very little time to actually switch off and spend time, you know, with our spouses or our families that are living with us. So it's really important that you set yourself boundaries and shut down your working machines at the usual time, and leave your working space until the following day. Obviously it may be difficult, you know, and especially during these unprecedented times, that, you know, you feel you can switch off. You might feel that you've got a heightened responsibility to always be monitoring things and always be picking things up with everything that's going on, but certainly trying to, you know, switch off laptops where possible, and your work phones where possible, or checking it a lot less regularly, just to be able to give that transition time throughout the day as well. Taking regular breaks is really important as well. So try not to stay too glued to your screen. It can be, you know, when we have it from the comfort of our homes, it can be very easy to just be absorbed by our laptop and, you know, not be taking breaks away and just feeling like we are glued to our screens all day. So it's really important that we do take regular screen breaks, that we're keeping hydrated as well. That's really important in terms of concentration levels, productivity levels are heightened if we're hydrated, and also getting up from your workspace and moving around. So try and think of it as if you were in your normal working environment. If you work in an office, for example, you know, you would be getting up away from your desk. You'd be going to make yourself a cup of coffee. You'd be, you know, interacting with colleagues and having meetings and those kind of things where you are away from your screen. So make sure that you are, you know, taking those short breaks. It doesn't have to be very long, but just making sure you're having those screen breaks and just time away from your workspace, because as I said, it will help with your productivity levels as well, and helping with your concentration. It's like anything, you know, sometimes a fresh pair of eyes on something can help you look at something a bit differently and help you think of different perspectives on things. So making sure that you have that time away and fresh eyes on the work that you're doing can make it all the more productive for you. Also, I know we mentioned earlier about lunch breaks and meal times and things, but making sure that you take your lunch break at the same sort of time that you would usually, that will really help add structure to your day as well, and making sure that you're setting aside a time slot every day to have that proper break away from your workspace. So it's not about jumping away from your workspace, grabbing a quick sandwich and coming back to what you were doing and eating it in your workspace. You know, try and set yourself a slot a day to be able to take a proper break away from your screen and have that kind of reset time to, you know, have something nutritious and help with your concentration going forwards for the rest of the day. And as I said, come back and have a fresh pair of eyes on something as well. And lastly, you know, it's really important that we, just because we are self-isolating and you know, our usual routines aren't able to go ahead as they normally would, try not to go without interaction. You know, when you're working from home, it's very, very possible that you could go the entire day without physically speaking to anybody, and that can feel really isolating, particularly if you are comparing it to being regularly engaged with colleagues when you're at work. You know, you might have a very busy role where you're very customer facing, or you may be you know, dealing with customers all day, or or having a regular interaction with people. Just because we are from home doesn't mean that all of that has to stop. It just has to happen in a different way than what we're used to. So think about how you're communicating with people when you're working from home. You know, does everything really have to be sent over an email? Are there some emails that you could instead have a real conversation with somebody over the phone? You know, pick up the phone, have those conversations. If you feel you want to follow it up with an email so that you have, you know, a paper trail, then by all means you can follow up with those points afterwards. But just having that engagement can really, for one, it can break up our day, and secondly, it can really stop us from feeling lonely and isolated because we're still having that interaction with people that we're used to. Perhaps if you're working in a team, maybe consider setting time aside to have regular meetings together. It might be that you choose to meet every single day, which might be more often than usual, or it might just be a once a week thing. But certainly if you're part of a team, having those virtual meetings and video meetings, you know, where you can all get together and see one another, it can still really help to make people still feel joined into that team and connected with their team and feel that they're really working as part of a bigger picture, that they're not just isolated on their own and things. So it also is a good platform to help people share within the team if they're having any workplace issues or working from home issues or anything at all. You know, they can share in that problem together and support each other through it as a team, because it will make them feel that they're not just alone in this, that they are part of something that a lot of us are going through, and their team can help them through it as well. So picking up the phone and making video calls with colleagues and having conversations instead of relying on emails and instant messaging, it can, as I said, make us feel much more connected to people and reducing the risk of loneliness and that feeling of isolation. And it's also about making it fun. You know, you can absolutely still be sociable even when we're in isolation. So that's not just around our working teams and our employees, but make contact with your family and your friends. You know, it might be that you've been meaning to get in touch with an old friend that you haven't spoken to in years, or it might be that you're wanting to connect with family that you don't often get a chance to see. It's a perfect opportunity to make that happen now. It might be that you end up actually speaking with your family more than you usually would, and you can make it fun. As I said, you know, it might be that you want to set up pub quizzes, it might be that you want to set up a reading club, a book club, or, you know, even if you meet that friend for coffee once a week and you're really missing having that time to go out, you can absolutely still meet for a coffee and just do that over a web chat. Obviously, it's not going to feel the same as physically interacting with somebody, but it's the next best thing. And we're very, very lucky to live in the world that we do, with technology being at, you know, the level that it is, that we've got that ability to still be able to communicate with each other instantly, and still have kind of a face-to-face connection with somebody, albeit over a video. So I also wanted to use this opportunity today just to remind you of the support that is available for us. You know, we recognise that it is an anxious time for everybody. It's a time of uncertainty, which brings its worries as well. So I just wanted to also include a reminder in today's session about the support that is available from Care First. For those of you that don't know, we're a professional counselling, information and advice service. We offer support for absolutely any issue arising from either your workplace to do with work issues, or an issue that's arising from home. Our counsellors are available 24/7 to help support with any emotional issues that you might be going through, and they can provide support in the moment as well, you know, whilst this is happening. We also have access to information specialist services. So if you have a practical inquiry, you know, we recognise that there's a lot of practical elements coming into people's well-being at the moment. It could be concerns over their employment, it could be concerns over benefits or paying bills, or travel issues, that kind of thing. So all our information specialists are Citizens Advice Bureau trained staff, and they're available 8 AM till 8 PM Monday to Friday to help with any kind of practical element or issues that might be causing you stress or worries at the moment. You can also access a whole host of information and supportive articles and documents through the Care First Lifestyle site. There's also an online counselling facility available through that platform as well, which you will be able to obtain your login details that's unique to your organisation from your HR departments. We also have a management consultancy service as well. So this is support for managers on workplace issues, really. So if they are struggling on how best to support their team during this time, then that service would be really useful for managers to help get some support around some of those issues at the moment. And just lastly, to touch upon the confidentiality of the service, confidentiality is only ever broken in really exceptional circumstances, as you can appreciate. So the service is 100% confidential. Nothing that you disclose to us will ever be disclosed to your organisation or passed on to any third party. But it is with these 3 really exceptional circumstances, which you can appreciate is the threat to life of another person, child protection and vulnerable adult issues, or the risk to the security of your organisation. So that concludes the webinar for today. I hope that that's given you some useful pointers on working from home and some of the things that you can do to try and maintain your usual routines and things that we're used to every day, and kind of putting in some boundaries really for you working from home and just making sure that that time doesn't overrun into another. And one thing I should have touched upon, sorry, as well, is making sure that our working environment is a pleasant place to be. You know, if you're shutting yourself away from distraction or from our comfort, like our living room and our comfy sofas or our beds, you know, make your workplace somewhere really pleasant to be. You know, try and sit yourself, if it's possible to, by a window, so that you still feel connected with the outside, that you can open up the window and get some fresh air and just see what's going on out there. And even just seeing what the weather's like, you know, that can, you know, in turn help our well-being and our mindset for the day as well. So I hope that that's been useful, just to give you a few pointers. It's not a long session today, I can appreciate that, but hopefully that's given you some pointers to take forward into your time working from home, and you know, maybe taking some benefits from that into your working routine when we do get to go back to work. So I hope that that's helped. Thank you so much for joining.